All right, well, I'm bored, so I came back out here. This will be another episode, I think. Start with this. We're going to do, get started on the radiator stuff, and then maybe go and tackle the windshield wipers. So let's, the problem that you run into with this is that the radiator, there's no like, I've heard, and I haven't been down there myself, but I don't think there's a drain plug. I think it's just basically kind of, there is a plug, but it kind of leaks, just kind of spills coolant everywhere. So that sounds fun. Well, we'll attempt to try to keep this as contained as possible. We've got some cardboard down. Hopefully that'll catch a lot of it. I got a plastic bucket down here. One of these drain things. So we'll see how well that does on catching everything. But the whole reason we're doing this is because we need to get the Spica pump out, which is right here. Also need to get the injectors. There's one injector here, here, for that. So this pump is a lot like, it's a lot like a diesel pump, right? So these are fuel injectors, and they go directly into the port. It's run off of an actual, and if you guys aren't aware of Spica pumps, they are, there's like a little set of, there's a belt on the front here underneath this housing down here. And that's why, one of the reasons we need to get the radiator out of the way. It's just a lot easier to do all of this. I don't know if you can actually get this out without getting the radiator out, but I'm not going to try. I need to flush all the coolant out of the radiator anyway. It's probably about time. So this isn't that big of a deal. So anyway, the mechanical pump runs off of a belt directly from the engine. It turns, insert internal gears. It has a physical computer, like a mechanical computer in here that basically is connected to the throttle by the lever. We've already seen this. We've adjusted it as much as we can. And then it has 4 pistons, inside. So it's like a little motor, basically like a little 4-cylinder motor in here, and the gears, it gets cranked around, and when it's time, it sprays, the piston goes up, drives the fuel into the appropriate cylinder at the appropriate time. Over time, these things are supposed to be serviced like every 10 years or whatever. It's been 45 and it's never been serviced. So all the seals and gaskets and everything, all the internal doohickeys and stuff in here are all done. And that's why it's running. It's one of the reasons why it's probably running so rough, down a cylinder, that type of thing. So I'm going to get the injectors serviced, and the Spica pump itself serviced. But first, to be able to do that, I got to take it out. So we're going to start with the radiator, draining, getting that out of the way, so that we can get ourselves a little bit more space in the engine bay. Okay, so I think there is so there's a cutout here underneath that is directly underneath the radiator, and I think there is a 15 millimeter bolt at the bottom, and it's kind of like, I think it's a drain, but it's meant to be a drain, obviously, but it's not like in a place where it's kind of wedged up in here. A lot of I think it pours down here and doesn't all go directly out of this thing. But I have the tub ready to go underneath there. As soon as I probably should do this. Take this. Like this. Crack it loose, and then have the tub directly underneath as much as you can, and just might help to actually open the top. Otherwise, it won't leak out. Won't drain. There we go. It's annoying. It's basically brand new coolant. But, you know, what are you going to do? So, let that drain for a little while. It's not that bad. People made it, on the internet, people made it seem like it was catastrophic when you opened it up. I mean, it's, you know, it makes a gigantic mess, but whatever. I've made way worse messes. All right, well, while that's draining, let's go up here and let's look at what we have to do to take this stuff, the rest of this stuff apart. Okay, so I've got an upper radiator hose, the lower radiator hose down here. Those need to come off. This needs to come off here. Looks like there's a bolt here and one over there, and I would assume there's something near the bottom, but hard to tell. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do. Take the upper hose off right now, and then start taking this out. Okay. All right. Well, here's what I took off. Ugh, gross. Man, disgusting. Okay, so this goes to the lower radiator hose. This one is the one that goes to the heater box, and then this one on the top goes to the bottom of the thermostat. This is what we're after right here. We just need to get this cover plate off, and then so we can get at the belt and take the belt off. So yeah, so I'm going to clean some of this gunk up, get some of this coolant out of the way, and then move forward. Okay, so there are 3 10 mils on this cover. There's one right here. There's one right here underneath there, and then you can probably see down there at the bottom there's a nut down there. Those are the 3 that we need to take off, and then the cover should come off pretty easily. So I've heard a lot of people just leave these covers just off. I don't know. Probably can't see anything because I'm pretty sure you're just staring at the back of my shoulder. All right. What's up? Washer on those, so make sure you don't lose those. It's hanging up on something. Let me find out what that is. The answer is it was nothing. It was just kind of wedged behind the belt a little bit, the alternator belt. So here is, it's a cogged, it's a belt that has cogs in it. So this just runs directly off the crank on this to here. So what you need to do is you need to take this belt off. Obviously all the timing gets all completely bent out of shape. Because it needs to be timed specifically. So before I take that off, I'm going to make sure that I understand that. So if it's something like the windshield wipers where I didn't mark it, I just needed to mark it and it would make my life a lot easier. But I believe you just need to make sure that you can mark top dead center. And I think this red needs to line up with that at top dead center. And then I believe that's what the case is, but I will make sure. Anyway, so yeah, onward to next. I'm going to take off the I can't remember what this is called, but this thing. Take this out, unplug the label the wires, unplug the wires. I'm going to take, believe. I can take the injectors out, and then I don't know how exactly how the lines are mounted, but I believe there's just a thing back here that holds these fuel lines, pressurized fuel lines. And then I need to take off the fuel lines going in and out, and clean up some more. Then take the belt off. Make sure nothing else is needed, and then, yeah, it should be able to come right out. Okay, let's do that. Okay, I'm going to do some, get the injectors off. So there's one injector each cylinder. It is a 17 millimeter, this guy right here on the end. It's one of these line wrenches that I actually own. It's pretty helpful. I don't think you have to take the. I think these lines are fine. I'm not gonna take the lines all the way off. I'm just gonna take the injectors out. Okay, well, that one's stuck. That one is not stuck. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. Alright, so got wires taken off, labeled, ready to go. I got the bottom of the thermostatic actuator out, so I need to get these top two guys here. Okay. Hard time figuring out what these size these guys are. Smaller than the sockets. Okay, so 6 is too small. Let's try 7. Bring an 8. Okay. It is an 8. Yep. 8. That's not going to work. You always have the right socket, you got the wrong wrench. You got the right wrench, you got the wrong socket. Alright. Maybe not an 8. Okay. What world? What's going on here? Okay, 7. And this 7 doesn't fit. What the world? Well, this 8 is the most wallowed out. My goodness. That is terrible. Alright, well, let me figure this out. Alright, welcome back. Alright, so, bunch of stuff. Sorry I've been really not around very much. It's been kind of lackadaisical. This is April now, mid-April, or late April actually, 2020. So it's, you know, about, I don't know, it seems like month 400 of the COVID lockdown stuff. So it's been taken, I've just had a lot of other stuff going on. But I wanted to come back and come back and tackle the rest of the Spica pump removal in situ. So I found a guy who did it, who went through, let me see, on alfabb.com. His name is GP Rocket. He has a whole thing about Spica removal in situ. I'm just going to do so all credit to him on figuring this out. I'm just going to do the video version of his photographic essay here as well. So some of this stuff we've already done. So we have removed and labeled the wires to the different pieces here. We've removed the so the FCS, the CSS, the micro switch. Disconnect the fuel lines. We have those here. They drooled a little bit. They're done though now. The thermostatic actuator is out of the. Make sure that you can see where I'm pointing at. The out of the top here, out of the head, and then out of the unit itself. We have disconnected the long rod that goes from the bottom here to this knob here on the throttle assembly. We have removed the rotor cap. I need to rotate this into top dead center so that we can, so on cylinder one, top dead center, there's a timing mark, it's on the other side. I actually went ahead and, if you can tell, I actually removed the fan off of there just to, so you don't need, I don't think you need to do this. But I went ahead and did it anyway. But I'll show you how that works. I did it anyway just because it was kind of in the way, and I just wanted to inspect it and everything. So here's the fan assembly. It basically, this part goes in the back here. This cap goes over the, basically centers onto the water pump pulley. This goes like that. There's a metal plate here that kind of sandwiches this plastic bit. These really long, it's like this metal plate here, like that, sandwiches, get the holes all lined up. And there's really long bolts here, through there, go all the way through that, and this screws into the water pump. And I took this all apart because it's just dingy looking. I'm gonna clean it up or figure out what to do, but it's just gross. So that's what I did. You don't need to do that, I don't think, but it's 10 mil long bolts to do that. And just so you know, to turn the crank is a 38 millimeter socket. I'm just using it on a breaker bar just to turn the engine. It's obviously really easy to turn the engine if you have. Let's see, close those off. If you take the spark plugs off, cover them with some, whatever, some of those are like rags. This is just the air conditioning condenser tube that's all split and gross and broken. So I'm gonna go ahead, rotate this to top dead center, then make some marks. We have to mark the pump, the pump sprocket at the front of that, I have to move that too, the pump sprocket, the distributor rotor, mark where that is, and then that way we were totally sure that we're at top dead center. So take care of the other side so you can kind of see if we can get you to see the mark, timing mark on the pulley. All right, so you can see the little tiny red arrow down right there. That is the timing mark for the front of the engine. Now, I don't know if this is at a different spot on the air-conditioned cars and non-air-conditioned cars, but I can tell you for a fact that if you have an air-conditioned car and you don't take the air conditioning pump off, you cannot see any of this part of the engine. That thing takes up so much space, and then these two pulleys here on the very front here, those are the things that run that air conditioning pump, but it has two belts. You can't see anything. So for the longest time I was like, I couldn't figure out how to time the thing because I couldn't find any of the timing marks on the housing. But with all this stuff out of the way, it's super easy to see. Now you can obviously, I am like literally like 6 bolts and like 5 hoses and 4 wires away from just being able to pull the whole engine out, which would make this all substantially easier, obviously. But I don't want to do that because, I don't want to do that. Not yet. My garage is too small. It's really hard to, I don't really want to have an engine sitting around here for a while. I got other stuff I'm working on, whatever. I say that now. Maybe next week I'm pulling the engine out. So anyway, what you need to do, like I said, is pull the spark plugs out, and then you can just put this right over onto the bolt at the end, and you want to rotate the engine over to the mark. Make sure, double check which mark it is. It is P. There's little dashes. I'll show you on the, zoom out here. Show you on the, in the owner's manual here. There's little different marks on the thing. So P is top dead and center. F is the something, I forgot which one that one was. M is the maximum advance mark. F, I don't remember. I think F is where you it's between F and M is where you start and where you end. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going for P at this particular moment. So I will keep cranking that until, I don't even know if I can zoom in far enough for you to be able to see that. Okay. That's one of them. That is looks like an I. That is M. That is P right. Let me get this thing out of the way and you can see it. So should be able to, so there's two marks right next to each other. P is right there. On the other, really close to it, is F, and then M, and then there's an I mark as well. I don't remember what the I or L mark is for. But anyway, P should be top dead and center, which means this first cylinder should be all the way up. And zoom out. So that should mean that this first cylinder, this piston should be up at the very top and in the middle, because obviously it'll come up, and then there's a time where it kind of sits there for a while and then goes back down, right? So as you can imagine, if it goes up and then it's at the very, very tippy top just before it starts to move down, that's top dead center. So you should be able to very gently see if this, yeah, and that piston is way, way, way at the top. And actually, when you're at top dead center, if you wanted to look at the condition of your pistons, yeah, it looks good. It looks super black because this thing ran so rich for so long that it's basically covered in carbon. So anyway, that should be top dead and center. So now what we need to do is make a couple other marks. All right, so if you can see it down here, so now we're in top dead center, and then you want to make a mark. So there's a red mark here on the Spica pump. This is at top dead center here. Red mark aligned with the red timing mark that's on the front of the pump. Let me get you out of here. Let's show you. So you see those the marks there. Somebody already marked this. Those line up, and then you want to make sure that you make a mark of where the distributor is. So it's pointed toward. Don't remember which one that is. Don't know what down is. Which one that is. But anyway, make a mark. Make a video of which way it's pointing. So you can always go back to figure out where you are. Make sure you're top dead center. Double check that you're top dead center on cylinder 1. and you're ready to continue. All right, next step. You have to remove these guys. These on the top of the pump. Let me actually get rid of this thing too. This hose, get this hose out of the way. Put that. You gotta get all these guys out of the way. If I get this hose out of the way, it'll probably improve the amount of vision we have. This is the crankcase. Well, not the crankcase breather. The breather hose from the valve cover, whatever. Goes into this little breather box here that gets recycled back in. Bottom of it goes back into the box. Yet another hose that probably needs to be replaced. Okay, so that should give you a little bit better. These are the fuel hoses. Tuck these out of the way. That is another. That's the hose that goes to the bottom here of the catch can that goes into the top of this. Of whatever this, the top of the throttle, I don't know, dumps it into the air box. Okay. These are kind of a pain to get to. It's a 17 millimeter. I loosened a couple just to make sure I could. They're not on super tight, which is actually kind of a surprise considering how much, this is the, ew, gross. Okay, well, good thing this thing's getting worked on. These are the top of the fuel injector pumps. This is the top that comes out of these little part of the pump. When we get the pump out, it'll be a lot easier to explain how all of it works. But these squirt the fuel into, like a diesel, into the individual fuel injectors, which we've already taken out. Yeah, these next two are a bit of a pain. These ones on the inside. And don't really have any. No, it's not that big of a deal. He says, right, as this one is basically impossible to get to. Don't really have a stubby 17 millimeter wrench. Don't know who would. See if I can just kind of catch the corner of it. There we go. For right angle, sometimes when you're having a hard time sometimes when you have a right angle that you need to grab a hold of, I've actually got a set of these guys, these pipe wrenches that actually fit. You can put them on the end of an extension like this, and it it kind of likes, you can get some leverage on them and kind of crack them that way. This worked on this one and this one, and then didn't work on the inside too. So handy for half the time, not handy for the rest. But so these guys, these stay in situ, and the way that the instructions I'm following, the way he says that it's way easier to do things is to there's a base plate that actually mounts this to the side of the engine. This pump, it's easier just to, it can actually be removed from the base. So it's actually easier to remove the pump from the base than it is to remove the base from the block when you're trying to get it out of the car here. Obviously a lot of this stuff is going to have to go. These wires that are sitting out here, these are I replaced the points with electronic. I may actually, I'm going to investigate if there's any advantage to using just replacing, keeping this, but just upgrading to a full electronic ignition system, one that you can kind of, you know, tune with the, you know, the ones that have like Bluetooth and stuff. You can tune them remotely. This is kind of a pain to get to and advance, and you know, to kind of move it. It's just everything's so tight, especially with the Spica pump down here right next to it. It's even really difficult to get the cap off, or it's not that hard to get it off. It's a big pain to get. There's a clip, and they put the clip right next to the pump, right here. So to get it back on, you have to really kind of wedge yourself in there, and all of that requires taking basically the entire air system, the air intake and the filter and all that stuff off. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to mark the distributor. I think that has to come out. Those fuel lines are off. I need to wiggle. They just said go ahead and cut the belt because the belt is really difficult to get off. The belt to the front of the Spica pump is really hard to get off. So it's best just to cut it and just get a new one. It's probably never been replaced, so I imagine having that break on the side of the road is a humongous pain. So I'm just going to cut it and replace it. Alright, so here's what I did. I'm just mostly just making sure that I remember what I did. So this hose here that goes to the bottom of this goes into the back here, one of those little spring clips, these hoses here. And then I disconnected this, which is the thermostat sending wire. And then I have just unzip tied some of these cable ties, whatever. And then these are the two leads that go to the replacement for the points. And then here, the red wire goes to this terminal with the greens, and then the black goes to the other side of the coil there. So I'm going to take those off. And then I'm going to take out, it says here it is an M6 nut at the base, way down there, if you can see it. It's hard to see, not enough light. You can see maybe right there, the base of the distributor, there is a little nut there, and you undo that. Make sure you remember that this thing is pointing down, and yeah, then take that out. So that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, so just to be clear, because I just started wrenching on the wrong one, that adjusts the tension so that you can time it, right? This one there is the one you take off to remove this. Just wanted to clarify that. Hopefully that's the right one. Otherwise, you'll never see this because I will not show this into the video, and I will find the right one and take that out and then have you then tell you that's the right one. But I don't know if you've figured this out yet, but I'm not an expert. Okay, so the distributor just pulls out here. Now you want to make sure that you've got so the wires that come out along with it. Now this is keyed on the back here into there. I want to make sure I get a recording of where this is, and you can see it down in there that that guy is just right there. Okay. All right. I'm sure I've screwed something up terribly, and I'm going to have to take the entire engine apart to fix it, but I've made note of everything, of where everything was, so I can at least line it back up. Okay, so I went to just kind of pry on this belt to kind of push it off, and it just ripped. It's like probably one of the problems with this pump is that this belt was total junk. So let me get that off of there, and yeah, we'll be ordering a new one of those. Okay, so this one's a little hard. I didn't really get this at first. All right, so top dead center here the mark on the P. You'll see this is the key that's the inside, so where the distributor comes into here and keys in with the little mechanical feet that are at the bottom of this thing. Anyway, so it's really hard to tell, but you can kind of tell that these aren't, those keys are not, you see how they're offset? So the center line's here, and it's actually like, it's a shorter side on this side, and like, you know, I mean, the shorter little stretch of metal is on this side. But this one, it's, you know, it's offset, so the offset should be on this side. So that's what I did. That's the way mine was when I took it out, which should be the thing pointed down, which was ours was as well, which is cylinder 1. So that's what we should be doing. That's the way it should be set back up. So make a note of that myself. Make sure that this is, you know, goes in, is pointed down like this, which means that it is like that. Okay, just making a note as much for me as for anything. Okay, so next up, switched around so you can see the bracket. You can see this bracket here that holds the pump here. So you need to undo this, 10 millimeters. You're going to need 2 because it's a nut and bolt. Same deal back here on the here, because these hoses, it's hard to, let's see if I can, these hoses are attached to the same plate. So you don't want to attach those. And then down here, you got to detach this bracket. And then I believe you are on to getting those bad boys down there on either side. You can see 1, 2, 3. And on the bottom, you can see 1, 2, 3. And then on the front of the Spica pump is a timing mark. Mark the Spica pump at that timing mark in a way that won't be easy to. Somebody already did that. So maybe this has been redone. Who knows? And then, oh no. So we got more bracketry to remove. M6 at the back, 10 millimeter ratchet type box wrench. Yep. Front of the Spica. Okay, so there we go. Yep. Remove the timing belt, which check, it broke. Cut. It's so gross. It just broke away. And then the M6 bolts at the bottom of the bracket. And yeah, and then take the pump straight out. So I will do that. Get these brackets out of the way. All that sort of stuff. Might just speed through this portion because it's gonna be kind of boring. But if I find anything that any advice I can give, I will pause, and then I will, pause the speed up, and then we can talk about it. So here we go. So the one on the bottom, the back bottom, you definitely need to use one of these ratcheting socket wrenches, because you can get literally like a quarter, like it's like, you know, you can hear it, it's like just a couple clicks of this thing. So if you were doing it with just a normal wrench, then you'd be there all day and you really can't get a socket down there. All right, next up, these nuts at the bottom of the plate, not bottom of the pump that matches it to the plate. I'll gotta move you out of the way, but I'll tell you what I've figured out is the solution. I have a deep 10mm socket because it's one of the thinnest walled ones I have. On a universal joint, I don't have an extension for the 1/4" drive, but I just have a little union piece there. And then long extension, like that. So you kind of squirrel all the way down in there. There's 6 of them, 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. It's, you know, not the easiest thing to get to, but this actually allows you to not, it actually makes it quite a bit easier than the bottom one of the back bracket. So let me move you out of the way, and then I will go through and just grab all 6 of those. Every time that you hit the little pulley on the front, it makes a big, very loud dinging noise. Which, done, oh, there we go. Didn't need the light there anyway. So once you crack them, they actually go pretty easy. One of the things I do recommend that you do is make sure that it's down. When you got this contraption like that, sometimes it's really hard to feel if you have it like seated right. So make sure that you have because what you don't want is to have it kind of catty corner or off wumpus or whatever you want to call it. Have it angled a little bit, and then round over the nut, because I don't even want to think about that. Don't even want to think about it. What you would do if you rounded one of these things off. But, you know, just make sure, you know, take the wrench off, take the socket wrench off, make sure that you have the socket really nicely seated on the nut itself, so there's very limited wobble, and then holding it in place. Pop it, and then go through all 6 of them like that, and then you can more easily back them all off. Okay, well that's everything. Just so you know, there are 6 little washers around each of those nuts, so I just use one of these telescoping magnet deals, because you know how I love dropping stuff down into the engine bay. My flashlight's down there somewhere, and I can't really see where it is. I don't want to go down there. It does shine directly in my eyes every once in a while though, so that's good. Alright, so this thing should be completely free and should just come right out. There is a gasket around the bottom here that will have to be replaced, and they say that it kind of fights you on the way out, and then you have to kind of wiggle. You're going to have to kind of get it off these studs, and then kind of wiggle it underneath these fuel lines. And then once we get it out, take it over to the bench, and we can kind of take a look at what's going on here, what this thing is, all that sort of stuff. So, oh boy. Yeah, so put something underneath it. So this bracket that has the hoses, fuel lines attached to it. I wonder if you just loosen that guy right there. Just loosen it a bit to have it so that it yeah, you can just move that bracket out of the way. It does share oil with the engine, so it's going to barf a little bit of oil out. All right. And there we go. Wires attached to things. Man, this thing's heavy. A lot heavier than I thought it was going to be. Oh, and we have got one more wire that we have to deal with. That goes to the bottom here. It looks like it's been spliced in. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to take that wire off. All right, back in a jiff. All right. Now that this thing is out, I had it drain for a while, but it's still making a terrible mess. I guess this is probably a lot better to do when you have the engine drained oil. Okay, so now that this thing's out, I've been told, make sure that it's totally in frame, okay. I've been told, basically, never, ever, ever, ever crack these things open any more than just taking it out of the car and sending it to Wes. I'm going to clean it up before I send it. There's been a lot of adjustment type things done here. I don't know how much of this stuff is knowledgeable or not knowledgeable, that sort of thing. Somebody hacking on it. I noticed that the wire, one of the reasons it's hard to get out is the wire that goes to the micro switch underneath here. In addition to these things basically just being siliconed over at the bottom, there's probably these little rubber grommets that are missing. Don't know where to get those, but I will look. The oil is super gross. This is not in good shape. I will clean it as best I can, just to see if I can get some brake cleaner and clean it off. It weighs a ton. It is a really heavy unit. You can kind of tell, one of the things you can actually see, like I said, this is essentially like a little 4-cylinder motor down here in the bottom, and as you can see on the top here, this is where the injectors, like where the fuel gets pressed up through these guys here, right? And what's on the back here is basically the mechanical computer with a couple of things. There's the where the thermostatic actuator goes in here, controls the fuel air mix, that sort of thing. On the back you can see where the throttle part is. This is all kind of wizardry. Up here is way more straightforward. There's 4 cylinders, 4 pistons, and if you look at the bottom, like a crankshaft. And this spins around. The amount of fuel that's metered into this thing is controlled by the computer, but this is pretty straightforward, right? This is just a timing thing. It squirts the fuel when it needs the fuel. And this is the part, a lot of the times, especially when it sits around for a long time with a bunch of fuel sitting in it, like this one did, if there's there's moisture in the oil, all sorts of things. They're pretty tough. When you get them, when they're in good shape, they're great. When they're not in great shape, or they've had a rough life like this one, they don't work. But once you get them working, then they're tough as nails until you need to take it out. But I will say this, as far as this episode goes, pretty much done. I just wanted to get this thing out so I can clean it up, box it up, send it to Wes as soon as I get the word to do it. And then, yeah, that actually is not that difficult of a job. Just, I'll put the link to the Alfa BB thing in there. There's a lot of parts. There's a lot of things. It's always a good idea to get your plastic bag out and make sure you are labeling all of your parts, and you put them in there. And don't lose anything. And order new parts when you need them. This is the gasket. This from the bottom is very worn. It's all gooped up. Like I said, there's 2 seals missing here. It looks like this seal has been, like, it's just looks like somebody's been using like gasket sealer instead of the actual seals that are supposed to be on this pump. So this thing needs some love. And so probably not a bad idea to take it out. And while you have this out, it actually gives you access to a lot more stuff in the engine bay. So you can get in there whether you want to clean, whether you want to check some things, some gaskets, those sorts of things, run some wires, run some cabling, routing, that sort of thing. It actually gives you a good opportunity to do that. I can show you on the other side there's basically nothing. This is where the micro switch on the bottom is. This side is where the throttle works. This is where, when you're adjusting that long rod, it basically adjusts, and when you're adjusting the thermostatic actuator for the temperature, whatever the temperature of the coolant is, cold start versus whatever. So when it adjusts the fuel air mix. Just so basically it adjusts what this lever does by controlling for the temperature of there, and there's a little thing that pushes, you can push down in there. This is the switch on the top, is for temperature differences. Caliente, the C, F, and N, so the Italian versions of, you know, cold, medium, hot. Yeah, so that's it. This one's going off as soon as I get the word, and then when we get back, we'll put it back on. But until then, I still got tons of other stuff to do on the interior. Some other things have been kind of lackadaisical about this, but I can get some parts in, get some movement on the stereo, some of the other stuff. Actually, the shipping stuff is actually starting to come in. One of the good things to do is when you're doing these, I've also noticed, is I forget what I need. So as soon as it's still on your mind, put your list together of the parts that you need to buy so you don't forget any. So when you go to put stuff back in, you're not saying, oops, I'm missing parts. So you got to do it all over again. So anyway, that's it. And yeah, I'll talk to you next time.